Hello, everybody, and welcome back to UI5ers Live. Today, we have once again got two amazing guests with us, and I think the one is no stranger to you anymore, and this is Volker Buzek. Hi, Volker. Yeah, and then as a further guest, I'm happy to welcome Tobias Queck from the UX engineering team to our little round. Hi, Tobias. Tobias is chief architect and one of those responsible for the SAP Fiori tools and SAP Fiori elements. And as some of you might have heard, the team around SAP Fiori tools started a new project to open source the code of the SAP Fiori tools. And that's what we are talking today with Tobias and Volker. And our second topic is with Andreas Kunz. Hi, Andreas.
Hello.
Yeah, he will give us an update on TypeScript as there are quite some news you should know about. So yeah, looking forward to this as well. And as usual, also Stefan and Peter are here with me. Hi, Stefan. Hi, Peter.
Hi.
Yeah. So let's start. And I give the hand over to Tobias.
Thanks, Margaret. So thanks again for the introduction. And yes, today we want to talk about the OpenUX tools. And I would like to explain a little what are the OpenUX tools, what are we intending to do, what have we already done, why did we do it, and why Volker is one of the main reasons we did it now, because he was trolling us to take this ahead of everything. Yes, so now he's also showing thumbs up. So why did we do, or what are the OpenUX tools? First of all, I hope you all know the Fiori tools. You can use them to generate Fiori elements applications or Fiori freestyle application. You can then extend or modify this application in Visual Studio Code if you like, or in SAP Business Application Studio. Our tools are built for both environments, so we are building them for you and you can use them wherever you want. We have done this, we have released the tools quite some time ago, and we got awesome feedback so far. Feedback in so many different channels. We got, of course, a classic SAP incidents. We got messages on SCN or in the community network. We got messages on Twitter. We sometimes got even emails directly. People talk to us in person whenever that was possible. And really, feedback was really good, but we also got negative feedback sometimes. Sometimes the negative feedback came more from the experts that really used our tools and wanted to understand them better and said, then, okay, it's great that you have these tools, but they don't do exactly what I need. So why can't you let me help you and make them better? And we thought, okay, that's a valid statement. Why not doing that? We even had one customer that was my absolute favorite. He decompiled our sources. He looked into an issue that he had, and then he explained to us what we did wrong. And this was, of course, amazing because it saved us the time to really look at the issue. We just needed to fix it. But of course, that was a little too cumbersome for the customer. And we really said, okay, it's too much. There is really no reason to not have these sources of our tools also publicly available. So we said, okay, we need to do something. We need to start. Now, if you look at the SAP Fiori tools from an internal perspective, if you can look at the sources like I can do, you would see that there are 250,000 lines of code for testing, code in the tools itself, so a lot of things. And some of that code, especially the testing code, also has some internal information that we can't simply put open source. So a shift and lift and be done with it was not possible. So we made the decision to start at the bottom and look at our low-level modules that we have that are used across all the Fiori tools. And then from the bottom up to the top, we want to release them or publish them to you. And of course, we needed to find a place to start somewhere. And that's where Volker came into the game. Volker came to us and said, hey, we have the easy UI5 generator over here. It's great to generate the UI5 applications. And he said, yeah, your generator is also great. Don't get me wrong. But for my cases, it doesn't really fit. I need this one over here. But why do we have to double maintain it here? And yeah, we said that's a good point. We shouldn't double maintain it. So he suggested, let's take the core, you take care of the core of the application, put it somewhere where I can use it, and I start using it, and then you can evolve it over time. And I am sure that my my easy UI5 generator is always up to date. And that's how we started. We said, okay, let's start with the simple templates that we have. We start with a UI5 application template, with another template allowing to add an OData service to your application. And then both combined, again, we have our freestyle templates that give you a starting point. And if you want to build some freestyle application and you need some getting started for something like a list detail report or a work list application. That's what we have done so far. We have released this to the public. We already had a few bugs in there by releasing it. One actually was fixed by Volker, others were reported by Volker and others. So this is really already, after a few weeks, or actually a few months by now, having it released, we already see collaboration happening, and I'm super excited about it. As you might see my face, my smiling, I'm super excited about that collaboration that we already see, and I can foresee way more collaboration in the future. And that's great for the product, that's great for you, and also for everyone else who's then using our products again, because you, the community, could help to improve the things for everyone else. But collaboration is not everything that's important for us, it's also transparency. Sometimes it's not about you contributing or you fixing a bug for us. It's more about also showing you what we do behind the scenes. So if you are wondering why things are happening the way they are happening, why not having the sources set for you to look at? Transparency is important. Transparency helps building trust. That's why we feel that this project is also there to create more transparency about the Fiori tools. And last but not least is also adoption. We want to build we have our Fiori tools for you from the outside. It's just a few modules that you can use, few extensions that you can use. Now we want to split it apart in smaller building blocks that you can use for all the cases that you might have that we don't even know of. So we hope that it's also helped the adoption of parts of our tools where they're not yet used today. As I said, we started with templates here, but of course we want to go further. So there's a blog post where we have outlined what we want to do next. So just quickly glancing at it, and then I'll stop talking about it, and you can read it later if you want. We also want to look at Fiori Elements flexible programming model. This is something new coming with Fiori Elements before that allows you to customize your Fiori Elements applications in a more modular way. And here we're also building the templates right away, open source for you to see. And for the templates, of course, the Fiori Elements, our core functionality is not yet there and will come there. And something being asked quite often by the community is the UI5 middlewares that we are shipping with the Fiori tools. There was some feedback of how they could be improved, but also some requests of simply showing what we do there so that people can better understand it. So this is in the works, not yet there, but is in the works. Main reason that is not there yet is this little box down here. It's the SAP OData client. That's one of our lowest level components that we're using to abstract from running an application studio, running against an ABAP environment in the cloud, running against a local environment. And this is the core of so many of our modules. That's why we need to open source this one first. And we're working on this one. But this one also has quite some internal information that we need to extract first before we can put it open source. If you're interested in this work, you can also check there's a branch since today, which is called OData Client Core in our repository. And here you can see, for example, two modules showing up. That's the Axios extension, that's the BTP utils. And these will be the foundation for the middlewares to come, the foundation for also the prompting for our generators to come that have to go to the backend. And yeah, work in progress. We also want to do this transparently for you. You can have a look at it already if you're interested. You can already give feedback if you like. So we're really happy about anything you want to share with us or contribute to it. Last but not least, I would also like to mention, it's sometimes not just about the modules that we have open source, it's also about the tools around it. So for example, again, mentioning Volker, a very frequent visitor of our open source tools, he reported an issue in the templates, and after some investigation and discussions across the Fiori tools team, you have one of the lead architects here. Here you have actually the lead developer of that proxy, and also then our friend Peter had an opinion to the topic. Here, more experts from the UI5 tooling coming in. And you see a discussion coming, and then if you scroll to the very bottom at the end of the discussion, it turns out it's actually nothing wrong in the templates. It's something wrong in our proxy. And now the Fiori tools team, currently still fixing it internally, will help solving this issue. So your feedback, even not directly for the currently open source tools, is reaching us better, and we're having a nice discussion across all the experts that should be involved. And last one, I'm really done talking, transparency. We're also setting up Sona right now so that you can also see the quality of the code we are shipping. Here again, transparency, transparency, transparency. We want you to trust us. We want you to trust our code and want you to be happy with our code. And with this was a lot of talking from my side. I'll stop sharing here, and I'm open for questions or whatever comes to mind.
Currently, I don't see any question neither in the window nor in the chat.
Perfectly
so
fine.
maybe...
If there are questions that come up afterwards, if you see this recording somewhere and you think, no, I would have asked a question, I think our LinkedIn links, our Twitter handles, our GitHub address, everything is in there. Do not hesitate. If you have anything you want to share about this topic, I'm always super happy to talk about it. The whole UX engineering team is super happy to talk about it. So please let us know.
Great. And maybe questions come later after maybe Volker's introduction, what he wanted to show. So let's see. So Volker?
Yeah, I can only pick things up with iterating the point that we should all share an effort when it comes to the UI5 tooling itself. So the big point here is reuse and don't reinvent. And I think on a constructive level, this reached the Fiori tools team. On a constructive level, we try to behave in the community adhering to this. And of course, the UI5 tooling guys, as in the core UI5 tooling, they're very interested in reusing things as well. So in the end, there should be very few happy paths, let's call them, to actually scaffold UI5 applications or to use UI5 related tooling during dev time, but giving us the maximum value. And if you peek in what Tobias already said, once upon a time, I wrote this blog post sort of outlining the idea of a unified UI5 scaffolding tool that reuses many different components out there. And I think this was the starting ground of many things. And one of these, as Tobias just outlined, the open sourcing of the Fiori tools, or at least it was one reason to probably start the effort. And now we're actually at the point where the UI5 or the Easy UI5 generator, or more precisely, the generator UI5 project, which is a part of the Easy UI5 generator, reuses templates that Tobias' team from the Open UX tools provides. And how does this look? You can here see the source code for the generator UI5 project. So it lives in generators, new web app, and they're in index.js. And if you choose in the prompting phase the view type XML, we bolted in the usage of the SAP UX tools repository or package. And I don't think it makes much sense to walk you through the source code here step by step. I mean, all of you can read, all of you are experienced coders. My point being is you have the generate freestyle template here, which comes from the Open UX tools. It has a nice abstraction where you can simply generate, as in generate freestyle template, the scaffold, and then commit it to disk. Following this are a couple of specifically, I'd say, integration things to do. And at the end, if you look at the generator itself, executing, then you can see also in the highlight of the color, once this boots up, I'll quickly skip through this here, that we have parts of it using SAP UX Fiori Freestyle Writer. We're patching a couple of things specific to Easy UI5, but all in all, we're achieving the reuse effect. And I think, again, stressing it, this is the main point. We want to reuse, we want to have very few happy paths, both from the community side and I think from the SAP side as well, to live happily ever after with UI5 tooling.
Volker?
Mm-hmm.
Is this dependency to that? Is it calling like a sub-generator, like what we have done with the Easy UI5, that you call that then, and you have a reference to that?
Exactly. Yeah, that's how it works. So it's importing this module from the UX tools suite, and then it calls simply this module. It's not a runtime dependency, as in it calls it at runtime, but rather at, well, it includes it as an NPM module.
Okay, it's not that it's like what we do for the Easy UI5 where we fetch it when we need it, and then, so it's really a dependency you have at, as an import, as a real dependency on NPM.
Yeah.
Okay, okay, thank you.
So if you peek at this comes from SAP UX freestyle.
Yeah, okay. It's a dependency of the project then. Okay, cool.
So, and here's to the community, look at things, improve if you need, rework if you must, look at the Open UX tool repository, whether it already holds the things that you're trying to achieve rather than reinventing them again. So let's start from the Open UX tools, then bring it to the community extensions, so we have the maximum reuse effect.
And I would like the chance to advertise one thing, because yes, as part of that this generator project or generator UI5 project is working, we enhanced that, what Volker said, the Easy UI5 generator, in a way that you can build these sub-generators as part of the UI5 community organization, contributed to the community, so you can even also contribute your own Yeoman sub-generator into the context of Easy UI5. So if it serves a different purpose, this would be also an option what you can do here. If you are interested in that, you can also reach out to me or Volker or Marius or Obert here in this case. So there are also possibilities to enhance even the UI5 ecosystem with own further templates for the UI5 projects and around.
Yeah, would be really cool to see how it's growing. Also the community project with additional modules and generators and what else is needed to have really the best experience to develop with UI5. Yeah, best experience is then maybe a good bridge for the next topic, because I think TypeScript is now also something you need for a really good experience, depending what kind of developer you are maybe, but for sure it's something, yeah, just common right now, no? And there we have some news, and I think the best who can tell you about this is Andreas Kunz. So Andreas.
Yes, thank you, Margot. Yeah, TypeScript. So I'll give you an update about what has happened in the TypeScript area when using UI5. To get everyone on the same page, TypeScript is basically JavaScript plus type information, just in case someone isn't fully aware. And browsers cannot execute TypeScript itself. It has to be transpiled to JavaScript first. So there's always a build step involved when you are developing in TypeScript. And we use this opportunity to recommend writing your application code in modern JavaScript in terms of ES6 modules and ES classes, so modern JavaScript syntax for class definitions and module loading and definition. And this is what we're going to see here. This is why I'm talking about it. And basically, we have already talked in a previous session of UI5 is Live. That was edition number 7 in April. We have given a short preview of what we can now do in the UI5 area. There has also been a talk at UI5Con, which I would recommend for everyone who wants to get into the topic UI5 and TypeScript. But that was in June. So what has happened since then? We have not been lazy, so I'm giving you an update now, and I hope this goes away. So first of all, what you see here is a new overview page that we have created that gives you really questions to all the answers around TypeScript. So this is now the new central entry point, sub GitHub.io, UI5 TypeScript. This is the central entry point for all information, for all examples, for all documentation, and so on, related to TypeScript in the UI5 world. So there are all kinds of topics covered, also the new topics that we have addressed since summer. For example, let's pick one. One can even profit from the UI5 type definitions. when you still work on legacy applications on JavaScript code, even then you can get your type checks and the early error reports and so on when you're doing certain things. And this is described in the sample that is linked in this page. There are other topics covered, for example, how to develop custom controls. This was also a topic that was lacking documentation and really also some pieces that are needed in summer. And since then, we have, for example, created a custom controls branch in the Hello World application that we have shown previously. Now, there's also a version of this app where we have a custom control inside the application. And there's also a different sample project at GitHub, which describes how you can develop entire control libraries in TypeScript. But for now, for today, I just want to show you the basics in practice, how you develop a custom control, which is more or less the same as in control libraries in TypeScript. And I'm actually I'm doing more or less what is described here in this example, but let's go to the code. So here, this is this Hello World example project, just a pure application, the one we have showed in summer, where you see how the code uses modern JavaScript, like class definition with the keyword extends, like importing modules, the new JavaScript module syntax, and so on. And as I've mentioned, this is then transpiled to JavaScript, where we have the standard SAP UI define for loading requirements, dependencies, and class.extend for defining new classes, new subclasses, and so on. So this is also happening inside the transpilation step, and it's described in those sample projects that are linked in the overview page that I mentioned. Okay, but now let's come to the topic custom controls. Well, okay, you see here also the inline documentation and everything that is coming with TypeScript. Okay, custom controls. Let's add a custom control to this application. Maybe let's first start this application just to see how it looks. Basically has just a view with a message page. So it's a very simple application. And we are going to replace this message page with a standard page which holds the custom control that we are going to add here to the application. This is now the application coming up. Always a bit slowish when I'm sharing something on Zoom. All right, so let's add a control to this application. So let's add a folder named control. And inside this folder, my control.ts. I keep writing JS for some reason here when I'm creating new files, but no, it's TS, it's TypeScript. And I see there are some chat messages. Okay. Now I have prepared some really small control, and it's about the same as in the example project that I've shown before. So now this is the control implementation. You see again, we import the base class we want to inherit from. We have the class definition. This control inherits from the base class SAP UI core control. And to create this namespace that UI5 uses, for example, for the XML namespaces, or whenever I'm mentioning the control, the same namespace that the application controller and so on have. This needs to be given then as a JS document. You can give the namespace like this, or you can also give just the name and add the control class name in the end. But this has to be given. So this is put into the, unfortunately, some Zoom UI is overlaying here. So the full control name or control class name can be given, like here for the controller. Okay, let's get back to the control. This way of creating a control in TypeScript also comes with defining a metadata in a slightly different way, well, just as a static class property. The renderer is also either a function or this renderer object when you give the API version, or it can, of course, also be a separate file. This is shown in the control library sample. And yeah, the render function looks just like you're used to it. There's some TypeScript stuff there, but apart from that, that's pretty normal control implementation. Okay, to use this control in the view, of course, we need to change it. First, we need to add to the XML view that XML namespace and at the top for the custom controls. So this is again where we see that namespace, the CC for custom controls as name that I chose. And I replaced the message page with a traditional sub and page control that just contains this hello world or this my control, which says hello world from the custom control. Okay, now if I save this, we have this watch mode running, which means the application reloads. And it doesn't work.
You need to save the control.
Yeah, now it should be working. Yeah. No, okay, hello world from the custom control. So at least that's proof that it's not something faked. And even the press handler works.
Awesome.
So, okay, now we have this custom control here, but there's something disturbing. There's some red line and it says property get text does not exist on my control. So that's the getter for the text property. And why shouldn't it exist? I mean, we have a text property, so we have get text and set text. That's what we know from UI5, but TypeScript doesn't know it. We just declared the property, and those getters and setters are actually created at runtime by UI5. So this is something that TypeScript cannot know. And this is why they show this error here, which means you will get errors when you use getters and setters. You will not get code completion for them, no documentation, and so on. And this is a problem in control development that we tackled. And to solve this, we developed a module or a small tool that we published on NPM. That's the UI5 TS interface generator, which we can just NPM install as a dev dependency. I think I didn't install it as dev dependency now, but never mind. And this tool does, as its name suggests, create something, some interface that will help us with this situation. So once it's installed, we can just run it. I use npx here. You can, of course, add it to package.json as a script. This tool has a watch mode, so it will just run while you are developing. It needs some time here to read all the TypeScript files. Actually, it has to read really all UI5 TypeScript definitions and so on to do its job. And now it's done. And what did change? The get text does no longer show an error here. It's now somehow defined. Okay, where is it defined? We can use standard TypeScript. Just click on it, navigate there. And where do we end up? Okay, in another file that is actually lying next to the control file. So it's mycontrol.generated.ts interface.ts, which is the thing generated by this new tool that we have developed. And this interface file here declares, again, the same module and the same class name as an interface. And this is a way how TypeScript allows us to enrich a class with additional information that is not actually part of the implementation. So we say here, okay, an interface myControl with a get text and a set text function or method. By defining this with the same name and in the same module, TypeScript automatically knows, okay, this other class doesn't have those methods, but somehow they do exist. And so everything is working here. So you might wonder, okay, this is get text and set text. So why shouldn't I just implement this interface by hand in the control file? And actually, you can do that. This would make this tool unnecessary. This is an option you have. But if you have no longer just one property, but you have, for example, I don't see the file names here. You have, for example, one aggregation and one event. You just save it, you know, it's in watch mode, it works, and it's done. When you have more than just properties, when you have aggregations, you see here, the list of additional functions gets pretty long, and also the signatures here with generics and everything to define the types of the callback parameters and so on. So it gets pretty long and complex. And this is something you might not want to develop and maintain by hand. And this is quite error prone because it doesn't really cause an error when you're wrong here, but when you're trying to use the control in the application or within the control code, then something will not work and will not be right. So we think it's pretty useful to have this generator tool, which generates all these API methods and runs just while you are developing the control. You don't need it anymore as soon as the API is stable. So when you don't add more properties or so, then you don't need it. But as long as you're changing the API, this might be quite helpful. There's one more thing in the output of this generator tool. There is a part here, note, the class myControl needs to contain the following constructors. Okay, there's one thing, the interface cannot define constructors that can be virtually added to the class. So this is something that really has to happen in the class itself. And this is why we are at least generating some code that we can just copy and paste. And this message will go away once I have added them. So let's go to the myControl implementation, because this is the only place, as far as we know, that we can add these constructors. And when we just paste this code and save, then also the different constructor variants of myControl will be available. So when we now say myControl, new myControl, then we can, for example, say text. And it's known here that we have optionally something called text. And this works. If we remove these constructors, then we see here an error because text string is not assignable to control settings, myControl. So $control settings is actually the constructor configuration object for the base class, SAP UI core controller. There you can put in, I'm not sure, tooltip maybe, or ID or stuff like that, but not a text property because this is only defined in our class. And this is why in this interface, which we generate also at the top, we have such a settings type defined, which inherits from the base class types, which are defined inside the UI5 type definitions, and where all these properties are added, or aggregations and everything that we can pass into the constructor of the controller. We add them here. Okay. Now the errors are gone again. And basically, this is how we can, with some tool support, also support developing controls as custom controls in applications or in control libraries. And you can, basically use this tool as described in the documentation. It's published on NPM. And this is just one of the steps we have done in the recent time. There's still more to do. We are still working on, for example, examples for testing and so on. We're also working on improving the quality of everything. So this tool, for example, is pretty much alpha quality. So there's definitely things we can improve, but we are relying on your feedback also to get this stuff improved. And I think that's what I wanted to show today.
There's one feedback from Marcia. He said this generator looks fantastic. So I think we are on a good way there. But as you said, feedback is always welcome, and only with feedback we can improve if there is something to improve.
So there's one question from Ho, which says typecasting using S keyword is not a good practice. Will you solve this problem?
Yes, this is something we can solve when we have looked and verified that this is a bad practice, then we can definitely change that. We do have to do some typecasting. I'm not exactly sure where you have seen that in the controller. There should be some like this here, because in many places UI5 has getters that get back some generic type or some superclass, like it's just component. But here we actually, the owner component is here the app component, and this one has more methods. And if we want to call them, we have to typecast. So the typecasting itself is required for many methods. Also, when you say get model or so, then you get back the base class and not the JSON or data or whatever model it actually is. There are ideas to improve this with generics, but this only helps like half the way. So the typecasting is required. Doing this in the best possible style is something, thanks for the feedback, we will look into. Marcel Schorke has here written a question in the chat. Is the interface for the control created every time you do a change in the control, or only when changing the API of the control? Right now, the implementation is very basic. Actually, it's changing whenever you do any change at all in the project. This is first because it's easier. TypeScript compiler API is not very good in this. It has a watch mode kind of, but it's not very good in telling me exactly what has been changed. And I'm relying on the compiler API watch methods. And they don't give very good information about what exactly in which place also has changed. So it's not easy to get better. But on the other hand, it could be that you change something in a different file, which maybe your control inherits from also, or uses a type from that other file. And that change can also affect how the interface looks. So it's not like only the control implementation can lead to a change that is needed in the interface, but it could also be a different file, or even in the UI5 sources, when you update the UI5 version, the superclass control might have some things changed, which would require changes here. So actually, I don't think it's even possible to just limit the reaction to changes in this file, or even in just this part. The metadata. So right now it does it whenever there's any change, but right now the speed is also really good. Now here it's 90 milliseconds for this one file. We have not really done scalability tests when you have a library with 100 controls or so. In such a case, it might be necessary to do something.
Which is also not a good practice. Or...
yeah. I know only one library like SAP that has 100 controls, I think. No, but I think in practice, the performance is just so fast because TypeScript is optimized a lot that it's probably not going to be a problem as long as you just have a dozen controls or so. And as I said, you only need to run this in watch mode when you are really changing the APIs all the time. And you can also run it in non-watch mode, just when you say, okay, I've done a couple of changes, now I want to run it, then just run it once. Okay, I don't see other questions right now. As I said, so this is the most important URL to follow, because here we will, as soon as we have new topics covered, new guides and so on, it will be updated here. Then sub.github.io UI5 TypeScript. And this is also basically hosted in the repository UI5 TypeScript, where we have in the packages now this TS interface generator. So when you notice a bug in this generator for control development, then please give feedback here in the issues area of sub/UI5 TypeScript.
As there are no questions, and I think then we are more or less at the end of today's episode.
Yeah, at the end of the year's episodes.
That's true. So yeah, first of all, thank you, Tobias and also Volker, who unfortunately had to leave a bit earlier for the presentation, and also Andreas. I think that was quite informative for our community. And yeah, to all of you, I thank you that you joined us so often here in our round over the year. It was really great to have you with us, and I hope we can continue with this next year. For now, I wish you really relaxing days. Stay healthy and take care of you and your family, and have a good start to 2022.
Yeah, happy holidays. Still a bit of work in front of us till holiday starts, but yeah, I can't wait to have some time for some nice community projects.
Exactly. I guess you will use this time to do some private coding on the UI5 community, and maybe some contributions to the community project.
Maybe to the OpenUX tools, Peter, we're always happy to get contributions from you. And this is also happy holidays from my side. And thanks for having me over here, Margaret.
Yeah, thank you. Maybe till next year then.